Welcome in our studio in Haarlem. Today, a very nice session on do's and don'ts moving critical applications into the cloud, cloud versus all kinds of controls, agility and cloud, all kinds of questions you may have. I think I have one of the most experienced people at the table today within IBM and in Europe. Juha is on a distance in Finland, but I will introduce my speakers a little bit later. So today is a very nice discussion, hopefully, with the participants. Please join in if you have questions or whatever. Please put them in the chat. I will read the chat here. It's on my computer, so I can follow them. Or break in if you really want to get involved. We'll put you on the screen and we'll have a nice discussion because the number of people attending is nice. So here they are. And the second thing we do is later on we have a nice breakout in two groups, I think, talking about a number of dilemmas you may have in these days. For now, I would like to introduce my, basically distinguished guests, because I found out that Sander Booij in front of me is half a lifetime a member of the IBM team or family, or how do you call that, Sander?
Yeah, the Blue family, I think.
The Blue family, yeah.
Yeah, nice. So started in banking and later on outsourced it with the fall of Fortis to IBM.
Yeah.
When they merged ABN AMRO and Fortis, and from there on sticked within IBM and moved between departments all the way to here to help the larger community in the Netherlands.
Yeah, and I believe there is not one corner of the financial sector you haven't seen.
No, I don't think so. Small, big, doesn't matter. And now with the function I'm in now, also helping that knowledge from the banking and the financial industry, helping the other industries and mid-sized organizations.
Yeah, well, we'd love to hear a little bit of your visions and sharing your thoughts, because you've seen so many companies that I think that will be very valuable. On my right side, there's Marco Dijkman. Marco, it's not a half lifetime; it's a complete lifetime experience in this Blue family.
Yeah.
Almost, how come?
Yeah, almost my whole career involved in IBM solutions, and first mainly focused from a business partner perspective from IBM, and then asked to come over to IBM, and over 20 years now. And within that, I had several functions, several kind of customers, industries, retail, finance, government. So I have some experience in different kind of industries we cover. And within that, last 6-7 years, focused mainly on SAP solutions, working with IBM and also with IBM partners to our customers.
So you're very experienced in the ERP area, but also moving to the cloud or these kind of things.
Yeah.
And you like football, I learned.
Yes, I do. I've also some history in there, so
yeah.
I could talk an hour about that as well.
Yeah, that's next time, or afterwards, yeah, Marco, okay. Afterwards. On a little bit further down, there's Juha. Juha, you're in Helsinki now?
Yeah, actually in Espoo, it's quite near Helsinki. So I'm just sitting in the old Nokia headquarters in the Espoo side. It's quite near Helsinki in a way. Some people are even thinking that it's the same area in a way. It's a greater Helsinki area in a way. And I have been working with Tietoevry, almost 36 years in a way. I have been doing basically almost everything in a way. I started as an operator, then some kind of HP 3000 system admin, and then Unix admin, SAP basis man, storage guy, and currently working as a senior solution architect in the customer RFP bids in a way. So, I don't have any specific knowledge about all of the stuff in that sense, but I know something about everything in a way.
Good. So you see, for all the people listening, We have at least, I think, 60, 70 years of experience around the table, which is a lot. So it brings me to the conclusion, like, I should pose questions and not get involved in the answers today. Juha, we have been talking beforehand last week on how this session should be interesting to everybody, and learning from your journey in your life, probably it's good to have a little bit of description of your journey, like what you have seen in the enterprise IT world over the last decades, because I think it brings sheds a lot of light on where we are now, and you even mentioned that we could talk about the cloud, but there are even current customers that would like to get back with on-premise solutions. So tell us all about it. Like, how do you see things developing? What is the direction, and what are your takes? Can you elaborate a little bit on this?
Yeah, I can comment that, for example, and everything I say is just my own opinions, not related to Tietoevry in that sense. But you're totally right. It has been some big changes in that sense. Of course, in the first, it was just consolidation was, I think, the first big step in that sense. And related to the consolidation, it was then the virtualization also in that sense. So you virtualized multiple servers to the one frame of the capacity, mainly in the Unix area. Still quite long, it was so that on the x86 Windows and whatever side, it was so that it was the one physical server for one application. But of course, this has been changed also quite a lot as the VMware was starting up in a way. But currently, I think I have seen, I'm not sure, is it a trend in that sense that, or is it related to the war or whatever, but it seems that some customers, they are, well, insourcing back something to their own premises. Of course, it might be related to the area like hospitals and that kind of stuff, that they are basically wanting to have the data near of them in a way. They are fearing some kind of challenges in the data communications or whatever, but they are liking that they are having basically the data as near as possible in a way. And I think it's related for that. I'm not knowing that who said that, but data is the new oil in a way. So the data is everything. That's the most critical stuff, and there's a huge assets for the data. And of course, related in the generic way, as the GDPR started about, was it 5 years ago in a way, that was also some challenges, even for the bigger companies, because you have to know where are you actually accessing the personal data. Yeah, even customers or people can ask that, okay, can you send to me the data that you are knowing in a way? So that's quite big changes. But of course, in the last 5 years, it has been maybe that it's a cloud era in a way. Of course, in the beginning, people was thinking that, okay, everything can be put to the public cloud, but of course, there are some challenges for the data sovereignty and data criticality in a way, and everything can't be put for the public cloud. And now, I think not the hype, but the reality is the hybrid cloud or multi-cloud in a way, because quite many companies, they are not using even one, but even more public clouds, like Azure and others in a way, but still they are having some kind of the private cloud, or they are using capabilities from the service providers. So in that sense, it's quite open in a way.
Okay. I understood, like the average enterprise uses about 1,000+ applications in the cloud these days.
Yeah.
That's something. We have also, you sent us a slide, Juha.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get up the slide. Yeah, I think this one. These are all the current things, like enterprises need to find a way or to balance all kinds of things, and it goes from GDPR to SREMS to Gaia X kind of, like, This touches upon the use of data. You call data, yeah, the new oil of whatever. Well, talking about oil and gas these days is already something. So how should companies balance these kind of things in your view?
Well, I think, of course, the first thing what you have to do actually is classify the data. Because the classification related to GDPR, in a way, you should classify your data and make strict procedures how to access the personal stuff and related for that. After the GDPR, the US Cloud Act, it was a little bit, well, challenged to Europe, because in the US, they changed a little bit how they are able to get data from all of the United States-based companies, even if the data is in Europe in a way. So that was well, not so nice to do in that sense. And the Gaia X is basically some kind of maybe partly political procedure to get the data strictly in Europe and make it more available and make a business possibilities on that. And also the Schrems a couple of years ago, it was some kind of decision related to make invalid the account of invasive US stuff, what they can do. And they also started to make some kind of strategy for data, how we are able to use that, how the customers are able to make some kind of business with that, or at least make sure that they can control that. And of course, the digital strategy, that's, I think, quite big program in a way. And also the EU Data Act, as I said, they maximize the value of the data. And I think the privacy shield review in the lower right corner, it's still on work, but it's some kind of the basic, how things are make better in that, if the US and Europe make some kind of agreed procedures and principles in a way. But I think this is just for the reference. In the personal mind, it might be a hype or not, but I think that you can refer to this if in the last or next 5 years, it's happening something big in a way, because it's still in the early stages, but you should take into considerations that what you are able to do, your data, how to strict that, and maybe limit some kind of, well, exaggeration to industrial espionage or anything in a way, but take control of the data. I think that's the main point I was trying to express here with this slide.
Very good. Yeah, hopefully we can share the slide with the audience if you're okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, so Marita can do that probably. The past decade we have been talking about a lot about disruptive technologies and innovation and those kind of things. Isn't it? You said like the next years it will be a new kind of dilemma we need to answer, like how to build trust. I mean, instead of only innovation. Everybody still would like to innovate and innovate. It has an innovation strategy, and I feel like all these things you have on your slide are basically, framing all kinds of companies into let's say new paradigms. How do you see these kind of things? Are we need to build a new kind of trust, and then innovation is possible, or can this innovation and this trust building with all these kind of things go in parallel?
Yeah, I think it goes in the parallel. Of course, this is not a strict need, because a lot of the trust is basically inside of the company between the people who are doing the work. And of course, if you are having external sources, third parties working with you, how they are able to access the data, the applications. So it's only small thing for that.
Yeah. Hey, and if I look at you mentioned beforehand, like you're in Finland, and because of geopolitical reasons, like suddenly you have a number of customers that are looking at infrastructure back on premise. Do you see that as a new trend, or is it only temporary, or how do you talk to these people? Because the company you work for is the largest MSP in the Nordics, I believe. Is this something that that is becoming a trend or something?
Well, wait and see. I don't think it might be just a small change in a way. The cloudification is so big role currently in that sense that it's. I think the next thing is the hybrid cloud, not the public cloud or private cloud, but the hybrid cloud just in between, which are utilizing the best parts of each of those in a way. So it's a hybrid cloud, and I think Marco and the others can say something about how applications are mainly moving the software as a service. At least some customers are seen to use that primarily, not anymore some kind of homemade application inside of the company.
Yeah,
well,
Marco?
yeah, the data is crucial, and that are the diamonds of each company. So you are very keen on to secure that. And there's a trend moving to public clouds, but what you now see is that, well, there's an hold on due to, well, external factors like Ukraine war and COVID, very impacting, and people of companies are saying, oh, I need to secure my data. That are my diamonds. Yeah. So what you see is just what you are saying, a kind of hybrid. They want to use the innovation, which is happening on the public cloud or on clouds somewhere. But on the other hand, you want to secure your own, well, data to have that for yourself and use that. So that makes a hybrid offering the way to go for a lot of companies. A company like SAP is pushing very much going into public clouds, and you see quite some big companies hesitating to take that step. So they are waiting and what is going on, and also the external things which are happening, what is happening outside, so they take a step back and see, oh, let's wait, what is happening there.
Yeah, like we mentioned a little bit, in it is like Schrems 2 is suddenly probably hindering some people some companies to take the next step, because it involves suddenly general management into processes.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on a large oil company from the Netherlands. There we have a solution in there, and well, what we saw there, they have a trade application doing a lot of trade with oil around the world. Is going a lot of money in there, but at the moment the war started up, they were trying to move to a public cloud.
Yeah.
And everything is going on hold and is going back to, well, their power private cloud they call it, but there's a private cloud they use for that. And well, you see then that an external factor is becoming an inhibitor and making a step back for them. So going back, secure everything, and let's see what is happening.
Do you witness the same thing, Jan?
Yeah, I think it's a normal trend with innovation. You go with the flow and up, and then you have a level where also the regulation kicks in, and you need to reevaluate where you are. Yes, and data is still crude oil. We need to still refine it, and we don't know how to refine it properly. So we need to step back, at least the companies that were way ahead in the cloud. So they will take a step back, have a look, reassess, and then again look which cloud or tools or whatever is suited for which product. In the old days it was great, we go for one, and all the attention goes there, and all the developers are free to consume everything that is available directly. Yeah. Against in the old-fashioned way where you have an on-prem infrastructure which is highly regulated from an IT organization, where everything is in control. So you come from a very restricted and rigid controlled environment to a full use what you can find organization. And there you will see, okay, let's hold back, new legislation coming in. Do you want people that only say, okay, we are compliant with that one, or you want to have technology that makes sure that your data is safe only for yourself? Yeah. So the technology organizations like IBM doesn't access your data unwillingly. Only when you provide the access, an organization should be accessing your data and not the other way around.
Okay, and do you see it, because your most experience here maybe in the financial sector, and the financial sector are the first ones moving into the cloud,
Yeah.
Do you see these tendencies and how to use data and how to get the value out of there really working, or are they still trying to, rework?
No, banking especially have a huge amount of data available for the organization, but also a very huge burden of legislation. You're not allowed, and they are really not doing, to have customer data because every time I will use my card with a payment, a bank technically knows what I have bought. They're maybe not sure on the components, but at least which company did I fly with, or which company did I purchase an item. And that can be very valuable to mark you in a specific brand or give you a specialized advertisement.
Yeah, but the regulatory environment, like
Exactly,
you were seeing on this slide, and these are probably only 8 of them, probably more.
Yeah. So that's very hard. That's why data is crude oil that needs to be refined within the legislation, and also by my willing. If I'm not willing as an end customer, because I also have a banking account, I'm not willing to provide the bank my data for that type of purposes. But there are other human beings that are, whatever you like to do, use my data and bring me more free stuff. So that's personalized by each person, but from an organization, you need to be in control of all those legislations, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, and how do you see that, Marco? Are companies in other sectors than finance get like maybe the retail sector? Typically sitting on a lot of direct data. They can probably use it.
Yeah, that's what you see in the retail is that there are a lot of AI and other kind of things. All things are generating data which they want to secure, but you as a retailer company, don't want that data to come to another retailer. So that's the difference where you can make the difference to other retailers, and you need to secure that. So have that value within your company or in a cloud or whatever. But I had also an experience with a large retailer, and moving to a public cloud, that's the way to go. And they were very keen on where is my data, and it popped up in Ireland in a data center. So then they raised the question, well, how this could happen, and they said, well, this is not what we want, so we need to have this locally. They make a step back, make a private cloud, also have the way to go on a public cloud for the innovation part, but my data is secured and it's in my private cloud. So that, you see it in different kind of industries coming up. That, the data is mission critical. I need to be 24/7 in these days available. Yeah, and that's and it need to be secured.
Yeah, we have been mentioning the term data sovereignty, and data sovereignty is in many cases people talk about Gaia X or whatever, but for retail companies or for smaller companies, on the enterprise level, probably ING Bank spends hundreds of millions on compliance issues with many people. I don't know how many people, and probably all these banks do. So they can afford these kind of things. The retailer is on the competitive edge. It's in the direct interest to sit on their data and not to lose them, and not to lose them for legal reasons, but also for business reasons. Yeah. Smaller companies, how can you help them? I mean, there are a lot of smaller organizations.
Well, I think that we as IBM have a lot of experience in different industries. And there we make some standard ways to go for different industries. And the experience which we have, that's what we try to make available for smaller companies. And that's not only on data, but it's on several kind of things. Development on AI or cloud, so that's how we try to help them. So make use of the things already has been done. So
And we also bring in business partners who are working with IBM products and other products but they have this additional capability. So we can say, hey, you can play around with Watson as a chatbot, but we also can provide you with a business partner who knows how to create chatbots with
okay, because otherwise they become very vulnerable.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so make use of other companies who are specialized in using the tools. So you, as a smaller or mid-sized organization, doesn't have to build that knowledge for your small organization. So
Yeah.
you can combine business partners for your organization to help you innovate in your organization without investing really in, high-skilled people.
And Juha,
Yep.
does that work in the same way in the Nordics, like where you are as a partner of IBM or an integration partner, that you try to help all these companies with a digital first strategy and then surround them with a number of partners, or how does it work in the Nordics?
Yeah, actually, I think it works quite the same way as described, just in a way. Of course, it depends about what area the customer is in a way. So, example, we have still quite many customers or organizations from the public or the governance side. And of course, they are having the very strict regulation-related stuff. But it's a little bit funny currently. If you go some flea market and buy something with €5 or something like that from the old lady who are selling some kind of stuff, in some places they are not accepting any more cash. You have to use the credit card, and that's a little bit funny in that sense. If the bank, somebody is able to break into bank or some kind of intelligence, espionage or whatever, if they have all of the data you have had, for example, for the money related stuff, if they are combining that with the data in your phone, the location and that kind of stuff, they actually know quite a lot from you. So for some people, this is a threat. But of course, as you said, we are also partner with the others. We are mainly, well, not mainly, but my part is for the capacity as a service provider. But of course, we are having a business partners, and Tietoevry is also making also applications in a way. For example, for the oil stuff, we are making worldwide stuff for that, and mainly still I think that it's a challenge. Who owns the data? Who is able to connect that? It's same challenge with the small or big or any other governmental or public side. So it's a big thing for the future.
But I've been working a lot in Sweden, and I know that the people in Scandinavia are pretty much IT aware, and they're also pretty transparent. Like that they in Norway that they know what their neighbors earn and whatever, what the tax sort of open tax authority. On the other hand, I think they also very much aware of privacy issues and security issues. How do you balance these things? Because you said this is now the reality, and how do I, balance this as an individual, but also as a company, if this is the direction things are going?
Yeah, it's well, thin red line in that sense that of course people have different opinions. Somebody is very aware about that kind of security related, and some people, they are just using their phones, they are using Google, they are using any kind of social apps in a way. But I think that's only the surface of that. I think in the companies, they are very aware about the regulations and how things should be done. So one thing that I should add in a way that I think every company should have some kind of cloud strategy. Cloud vision in a way, and that should be the first part, that they are thinking that how they are tackle the data security and that kind of stuff. So as the discussion that how we should handle this business critical stuff, of course most of that it's done inside of the data centers, but as you said, people should be keen to see that how other organizations are using the data that you are giving for them. And well, of course, the young people, they have been doing the social thing forever. but I think, well, I'm maybe a little bit too old for that, but my couple of the sons, they are from 30 to 30 or more than 20 and less than 30 years ago, and they are really using the not the business in that sense, but the social media and that kind of stuff. So people are now keen to see how things are going. Is Alphabet using the data in what way? Is Google using that? What Apple is doing? But I don't think that's any big challenge. People are aware of the security-related stuff in the Nordics, as you said.
Hey, talking about age,
Don't look to me,
it's like, but touch upon these kind of things. People tend to work sometimes for a longer time in an organization. And if you want to facilitate change and going to the cloud, it has to do something with the culture and how to adopt the workforce and into a new situation. What is your experience there, Marco? Does it really work, or is there a lot of are we underestimating these kind of things?
I think that sometimes it's underestimating. I agree on that, but when I look to within our own company, IBM, where we're working, and see how we need to adopt the new things, the new way of working, the new tooling which we have, going to new environments. It's bringing it in and we use it by ourselves. So that makes the experience, and that's for me, the way to adopt it and take new things with us. But I don't know how you.
I think also when you look from development perspective, and the enterprise organizations before cloud, it was highly controlled by the IT organization. You're not allowed to do this unless it's part of your job. You're not allowed to access that data unless it's part of your job. So within those 20, 30 years, we are trained by mind not to do specific kind of stuff because it's not part of your job.
The cultural legacy.
The cultural legacy, and now you're going to, anything goes, and the old guys like I are still with that mindset. Oh, it's not part of my job, so I'm not allowed to do that one. Versus a new type of developer who is used on consuming every data that is available, not by misuse, but just by use. And there kicks in the privacy part, are you still allowed to consume that data just because you are developing a specialized product? And that's the difference. Also, when you go from an enterprise into the cloud, you still need to bring in that old legacy controlled in framework into their cloud. And that's one of the initial steps where things go wrong, maybe what needs to be learned when you go to cloud. Bring in the old security and privacy legislations and make sure that people are not allowed to do stuff that they were not allowed to do on-prem either.
Yeah, like I mentioned, you are with the old IT service management world where you had change requests and now we're suddenly in Agile and cloud and a new generation without having the legacy of doing things slow with all the checks and balances in there, because the logic in ITIL is just a set of best practices how we set up an infrastructure. And there's a lot of logics, behind these developments. And now we need to develop new logics, and sometimes with old people, and sometimes with young people, without having the old knowledge.
Yeah,
do you help these companies in that sense?
Yeah, and new is not wrong, eh? So
you
just need to create a mindset for your organization what to do in which balanced way. So yes, you can do a daily change, but be aware of what type of controls need to be in place to enable those activities.
Marco?
Yeah, I'm mainly working in SAP ERP environments, and what you see there, the old stuff, as I mentioned, May mentioned this, there's a lot of code made specific for each customer. So almost every customer has specific code made for them. And when they want to make a move, and SAP is really pushing this, go to the cloud, then you have all new innovations, but you need to go to a standardized. So your specific code, you need to drop that and take, okay, this is standard and I need to make well, a different kind of work, regulations, all kind of things are changing then for companies. And that's very difficult for them from a cost perspective to drop that. So there's a lot of money in there that they don't want to lose that. On the other hand, they don't want to come behind and don't want to step on that train of the innovation which is going on. So they are struggling, well, okay, do I need to step in or wait? And that's,
or are they using RPA maybe as an in-between solution?
But what you also see is that for the different kind of things, AR, HR, or the different modules, they pick the best of what is in the market, so they split it up and not take, well, in this case, SAP as a total vendor. No, I take another vendor to do HR for me. So that's, well, it's easy to pick that because all things are happening on open standards, so it can connect to each other, so they are not stick to one company anymore. And that's also what IBM is offering, an open platform. So you asked me, well, what is IBM doing for customers? Well, we bring in an open platform in which you can connect different kind of solutions on an easy way and pick the best what you want to have.
Yeah, but once it's open, once on there, can I leave?
It's difficult.
I mean, is it Hotel California in that sense?
Well, you can leave always, but it's costing a lot of money because you make investments in there, and when you want to step out again, it's a lot of money. When you're once in a cloud, it's very difficult to go back to. It's costing also migration and other kinds of things.
Yeah, because in earlier discussions we touched upon the legal, surroundings. The companies are there. If they move from one cloud provider to another, probably in many cases the initial contract was not right, because they never thought about once leaving that you keep another 5 years. You need to store the data, for example.
It's not that
I would
easy.
say open would also mean giving an answer or having at least a solution for these kind of things.
Yeah,
am I mistaken?
Stepping out from a cloud vendor from one to the other for the same solution is very costly.
All right.
And there comes open source software, like a Red Hat, can come in easy if you want. If you're using components that are available on all cloud vendors instead of going specifically for that cloud native product. That will become handy. Yes, it is handy to have a cloud native product versus let's go for an open standard where you need to do a little bit more. The same with the chatbot. The chatbot cannot be converted directly from one cloud to another. But if you know how you train the chatbot, you can do the magic on other cloud vendors. So and there comes the bailout strategy, which should be mandatory if you go to a specific vendor or on-prem. Be aware what your strategy will be if it doesn't suit you anymore.
What is the positioning of IBM in relation to AWS and Microsoft and Google in terms of providing a solution? Are you a solution provider? Are you hosting? Are you touch upon this data sovereignty or very specific solutions? What is the positioning?
Well, they are partners for IBM as well. So,
yeah, of course, but
so we work together with the Microsofts, the AWS, and bringing our cloud packs, which we have. You can use them or are available in a cloud offering on these different cloud vendors in the market. So we work together. But on the other hand, we want to make a difference. So we have a difference on the back end. Let's say our infrastructure is much more scalable, more performant, secure. So there are differences in there. And when you have mission critical workloads which need to be 24/7 available, then you don't want to have maintenance weekends, let's say 6 or 7 times a year.
No.
And that's where's the difference. Well, if we do that on more high available infrastructure, which we have, and we have our own connections between the data centers, well, that's making
Then you make a difference.
Yeah, then we make a difference.
Okay, do you see in the position of IBM, what makes you different from others?
No, I think the security part, the confidentiality of the data, that's really high on the focus on the IBM cloud. But on the software part, indeed, work together in a hybrid model. So you can use Watson on Microsoft or on AWS for that matter. So on software you see, distribute the services that we can provide. If you want to do more on the compliancy and data sovereignty, there IBM is still in the lead to make sure that you have the option that we cannot touch your data. And it's better to have control by yourself and then hanging on the key into the cloud. So it's like we have the capability of bring your own security key, where you hang on the key at the front door, into keep your own key. So you have your encryption key with you in your own organization, where you can control literally yourself who has access to that data.
Yeah.
And there is still the high differentiators.
Yeah, how I see it a little bit, that we're seeing in Europe more and more attention, like because of geopolitical reasons, because of all kinds of reasons, like we want to position ourselves as an economic area more and more, that this data sovereignty or whatever sovereignty in general becomes a thing, and probably because of the war in Ukraine even more in the next years. And I think that companies like, especially American companies, will have to reconsider certain things. And do you see the same thing, that you have hired a lot of people now in Brussels to have a lobby against or before or learn from the European Commission? How does IBM give answers these challenges? Do you have information on that, or is that beyond your?
Well, I'm not a clear answer on that, but let me think shortly. Sander first, and I'll come back to that.
No, but what you see, I think IBM has stated openly, as the only cloud vendor at the moment, that we will not give your data that is located in Europe or in Frankfurt, that matter. That's a preferred cloud environment. That we will not provide your data to any government. And we're the only one that has written it down on paper and can tell you that we will not do it. So, and then again, you have trust. You can trust my blue, gray eyes, or you can use the capability where technically are also not able to access your data. And you have a highly, and that's even better. You have trust, or you have control. And personally, from a personal perspective, I like to have control over trust.
Well, it's good to hear that you're the only one that actually written it down. Juha?
Yeah.
What makes your company so special, or what sets us apart? Why did you become so big?
Well, it's a merger between Tieto and Evry. Tieto was the biggest in Finland, Evry was the biggest in Norway, and in Sweden it was about half and half in that sense. So, and we didn't have so much overlapping stuff. So it was not so much in that sense that we did something in the same way, and we have the basic areas in the same way. But I think before answering more for that, if I can comment about the discussion that you had already here, that I don't see personally any challenge with the IBM in that sense for the data security and that kind of stuff. People are more concerned about Alphabet, Google, and Apple. Well, those normal stuff, and of course the NSA, Homeland Security, and whatever internal organizations in the US might have been more keen to have our data in a way. But just one addition also, that what has been changed in the last, was it 5 years ago or 4 years ago, when IBM bought Red Hat. So after that, there's basically new kind of the, well, is it some kind of the ecosystem implemented in a way. It's the Red Hat OpenShift in a way, which is the hybrid cloud platform built around that kind of Linux containers, and it's orchestrated and managed with Kubernetes. So after people has been starting to use that, they are building new version of the software really fast. In the past, it was so that for some big program, there was an update twice a year or something like that. currently people are developing with the CI/CD pipeline and everything related for that. They can release many releases per day. And because of the containers, it's quite easy just to put new containers on and shut down the old ones. And actually, it's a new versions, not maybe daily, but weekly or monthly or whatever. So this has been changing the whole scale of the application management and application development. So that's also a little bit funny thing that I think that was it $32 billion that IBM was using to buying Red Hat. That was the really big change for the forward. And as you said, that this is some kind of open standards, open source culture. And Red Hat is still, I think, working in that day. So it was not any kind of detained by IBM as working as a big company in a way. But I think that's the biggest change now ongoing in that sense. But more about why we are so good in the Nordics, that of course we have been in the business quite many years. I think the Tieto was started, or one version of that was started in the 60s in a way. And we are building up the society. That was basically one slogan of our boss in the, was it 90s? But of course, it's also that we are having quite good many people, and I said that we are the biggest provider, for example, for the IBM Power side. So we are having the expertise with that more than 20 years and that kind of stuff. So we are basically knowing what we are doing.
Is there room for competition in your region, or?
Yeah. I can say unfortunately still. the Indian players has been coming to the Finnish market and the Nordic markets quite heavily in the last 5 years in a way. So, but of course it's a little bit challenging in terms sometimes because the culture is a little bit different and people are still keen to use their own local language, not English at everywhere, but still they are big challenge because of the pricing is quite competitive normally in a way.
But you are the Indian players, are they offering also a local solution and offering like you do, or is it from India? Or
well, they have been starting to do that in a way, but of course it's mainly so that they have been building, or they have a co-operational data centers in Finland already, because one of the big bank OP was changed basically from our side to the one Indian player a couple of years ago.
Okay, yeah, and by the way, I came across 2 years ago a nice Finnish company, Reactor. They came from Helsinki. They landed in Amsterdam, but this was typically from startup growing to 400 people, which is not 400,000 people though. So it's probably a very small one for you. Let's try to involve the people listening. I see Remy, I see Wouter, I see Hans. Hans, you were here last week. Are you with us?
Yeah, yes.
And only your screen is off. Yeah, there you are. I guess. How do you listen? How do you listen to all these things? You're at the Volksbank these days.
No,
after so many years, ING Bank.
Finished an assignment for Rabobank, so
Yeah.
I'm really in the banking business, let's say. Yeah, it's an interesting discussion, although I believe there are many business critical actions to go, and I think what's really important for the discussion is the economies of scale. Actually, it doesn't matter if you have to comply to certain privacy regulations, whatever, if you are big or you're small, but the amount of work is almost similar for big or small companies. So how do we deal with that thing, that aspect?
Do you believe that your work as an let's say IT manager or CIO or whatever role you were in, or architect, becomes more complex these days than it was before?
Yeah, absolutely.
While the promise was the cloud would solve a little bit of these things, no?
Yeah, the move to the cloud is maybe not the big issue, but it's an enormous increase of regulation which kicks in.
Same question to you, Wouter. You have been ABN AMRO Bank for half a lifetime as well, and now you moved on to a number of other organizations. And to my mind, you're at least a specialist in how thinking about infrastructures and IT infrastructure. How do you look at these developments these days? What is your vision?
Well, I think that what is in development, in IT development, making lives easier is a good platform architecture, and a cloud platform is just one example of that, which allows you to use a lot of ready and available services that you don't have to configure and build and use in your own environment, right? It makes it a lot easier. So there are a lot of advantages in using the cloud, and yeah, I think that regulations around the cloud, at least, are important in the sense that I think it's good that IBM says, "Hey, we don't give your data to any government." I think that if we find out from Azure, for instance, that they would do that, they would lose a lot of customers. So I think that no serious cloud provider is going to do that. And from the security point of view, yeah, I mean, you have the shared security model in most clouds. So the hardware is basically more secure than what probably most companies can do by themselves. And the software part, the access to the data, is a different story. That is what you're still your own responsibility as a company. And obviously, when it's on your own data center, it's not readily exposed to the outside world. And on a cloud, if you do something wrong, it might be. So you have to pay more attention. You have to be more disciplined. But if you do, security is very good, and also security monitoring is arranged very well on the cloud usually. So it provides you also with a lot of services around security. So I'm not so sure whether leaving the cloud would be a good idea. I think using the cloud is good, and also for key data, I think is still a good option.
Hey,
just one remark on IBM, who doesn't want to provide data to certain governments. I did quite a lot of projects with ING, as an example, ING Bank. But be aware, if the US asks for access to the data in their data centers, IBM can say no, but that's not the right answer. You know, Patriot Act, US Nexus are legal issues if you don't want to provide the data. So you are not willing to provide, but you are obliged to provide as a US company or using US data centers. That's for sure.
Yeah, but I think this is related to ABN AMRO or ING or having to provide the data, and not so much via the back door that as a company you don't know and your cloud provider is doing that.
Correct.
So I think that's the difference, and I think that the cloud providers will not do that. But it might be that the company, a bank, might be required to do so based on agreements, and otherwise they cannot do banking in the US. I guess that's.
No, I agree. Another issue I want to bring into discussion is the GDPR regulations. As company, you are and you remain owner of the data, and that gives certain obligations. So in the cloud, public cloud, private cloud, whatever, you still are the owner of the data, and that brings certain obligations and also certain fines if you don't apply the right regulations or the right measures.
Would you be willing, Hans, to install a cloud-native application if all these things are not really clear yet? I guess no, but...
To me, I'm absolutely pro cloud, but I think, or I believe, many companies are not aware that talking about the public cloud, you need to take certain measures for your own domain you still are responsible for. So maybe the platform is well secured, but everything you build on top of is your own responsibility. So using the cloud doesn't say, okay, we are secure and everything is going quite well. You need to implement really specific measures for your own Active Directory, whatever, all the things you build up on the cloud environment.
Yeah, and before I get to you, Remy, I will get after this remark. I'll get to you with a similar question how it works in the educational world. Sander.
No, it's exactly what they said. You as a company are owner of the data, and if you as a company are obliged to the American law, in this case as an example, you must provide that data, and you must make the decision if you're willing to do or not. Depending on the outcome of the risk, what you're doing. It should not be, and that's where IBM states, we will not provide data from that from that company. Yeah. Yes, it runs in Frankfurt, but it's their data. We will not provide that data in Frankfurt to an American government for that matter. And that's where IBM makes the difference openly and on paper that we were not doing that one. And other providers at the moment are not stating that openly.
Yeah. And well, the data is not yours, so you can also not give it away.
Yeah.
Sorry?
They won't do it. Maybe they don't write it on paper, but if they do it, then at least openly they would be crucified. There would be a big problem for them. They will lose a lot of customers in the end.
Yeah, I guess so. This, I go back to Remy. Remy? Yeah. You're from the educational world. Is there something about the cloud journey you have been making in the past years?
Well, I have to say I'm only working now in education. Before that, I worked a lot of time in finance, Fortis, Mees Pierson. So
all finance people today.
Yeah,
all smart people.
My colleagues from the past. But the last 10 years, I'm working with smaller. In a sector like education, corporate social housing, but also container terminals and that kind of things. But I see in this sector they work together, and they are served by a service provider, Serve, that provides the platform. And one of the big issues is then that in the end you're stuck with it. All the schools, public schools, MBO, HBO, even also I think work with Serve, and you see then that in the end, when you want to use your data, you even have to pay for it because you want to use them in your data center, in your own private, or want to use some tooling. And in the end, they try to make it into their business model, and you have to pay for things that they think you cannot do. Because there are also schools that have, we are an organization that has 17 schools below, so with 14,000 children, and we have a large IT department, nearly 50 people. So we can do something ourselves. And then we get a kind of vendor locking. That is the main problem I can see when you're smaller in smaller sectors, when you use cloud solutions. And even when you go multi-cloud solutions, you get all the problems trying to get the data to one point or transporting the data from one cloud to another cloud. That is the main problem at the moment. And to manage that, and yes, all the security is okay. We cannot do it ourselves, so that's why they choose for it. But managing the vendors and trying to get most use of that raw oil, that's the main problem at the moment, especially in the education sector.
And what would improve the situation for you if because SURF in principle started as a foundation, a stichting?
It still is. Yeah, and what would improve?
Expect a little bit of different situation for the educational world and their members. Or are you a member or a customer? What are you?
Yeah, that's a good. I think we're a member. I think everybody is a member because it's a non-profit organization, but still, they also need to, get the cost, make money in the end. That's the whole thing. And there are some vendors that are connected to them that provide special software, Eduard, Magister, that are then, and then kind of way connected to SURF to make everything happen. But in the end, I think the data-centric way of thinking and keeping your data by yourself, so you can move, if you want, from ERP vendor to another one or from platform to platform, that I will think is the way for the future, because we have a lot of data. Everybody wants to own it or have access to it. And okay, all the platforms have their own rules on it. But in the end, you want to own, as they say, it's your data, you want to own it and do whatever you want without asking or getting problems of moving it. Recently, I worked with in the social housing corporation sector. There, I asked for a vendor, can I put the data? I still had it on premises and we wanted to move to the cloud. So I said, I want my data still on premises and the software can run in the cloud because I have my own data, data warehouses. That we have multiple warehouses that were depending on it. With all kind of reasons, it was better to have it on site. And that was not possible. So in the end, we had to move to the cloud and our data warehouses get more and more problems because we couldn't move the data. We made copies at night and then we had to make copies between clouds and everything, latency. No, it was not possible. And in the end, they provide us with Power BI tools because they say we have them also. And we were nearly forced to use their Power BI on their platform instead of the ones we already had.
Is that nearly forced, eh?
That was really, we had interesting conversations about it, but in the end, they didn't move. And I understand because, that is their business model in the end. They moved us to a ERP solution in the cloud, and all the tooling around it, was interesting, but we were so big, we were one of the top 20 in Holland. We did it already for years ourselves. So that was an interesting development. I was not there till the end, so I don't know how they ended up. But I can see that also now in the education sector, that we are forced by the big ones that if you want to move to Microsoft, then Microsoft preferred, as they say in education. So we use all Microsoft tools, and then our own already existing platforms are shut down. We go from ClickView to Power BI. Okay, that's a normal transition, but then you move to the one that the vendor provides instead of the one that we had on premises.
Yeah, so you're caught up in a vendor lock-in in your sector now, in a way.
No, in a way that are
to what you're trying to with your own shift kind of.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to look at it that way, of course, but you can also look at it at another way. If you take, for instance, Power BI is part of the Azure platform. If you try to build your own data platform and you want to be as good as for the Azure or Amazon data platforms, it will take you hundreds of millions of euros to be as good.
Yeah, but it's not that we don't want to do this, but they are very small and they have a solution.
Yeah.
And then you see that when they move up, the solution costs more money. But these organizations are funded by public money, and they don't make money. So they are stuck with the maximum they have to spend. And then moving, and they call it also innovation, it costs a lot of money. And if I calculate how much money based on what we can get from the government, based on how many students we have, it's a lot of money.
So you were saying that the cloud was actually more expensive than your own environment.
No, the thing is that the cloud is better and in fact not more expensive, but when you get it, you get so many possibilities that in fact are forced by all kind of developments, that we want to have more digital education, we want to communicate digital, and you can have a lot of nice innovations. And if you count it up, at the end, the price doubles. And that is something, maybe it's also an awareness from the management that they have to get used to it, that, yeah, if you want to be more digital, and we saw it, of course, when we had the Corona crisis, also students had to go online. And in the level of education, MBO, children didn't have the money. So now we provide also the children with digital tools.
Yeah,
14,
so the price
we have
went
14,000.
Yeah, so the price went up because you were using more features and you were using.
And it's normal, because I can understand it. For me, it's not new, but I have difficulties to slow down the ambitions to a point that, yeah, this is what you really need and that we can afford, and all the extras, okay. And then you have problems with vendor locking a little bit, and you have problems with data that is everywhere or difficult to transport. Because in the end, the education, well, how we are organized is like a multinational. We have 17 schools that are independent and work on certain points together. So then you get a small multinational environment, and then money and these kind of challenges are difficult to manage.
Yeah, it's right. It requires a lot of maturity in the cloud to be able to manage two different cloud environments or multi-cloud. It's really, really difficult and really expensive if you don't manage it properly. So the maturity level required to do that is really high, and even very mature organizations find themselves in trouble with this. So when you go for a public cloud solution, the best would be to use one platform. And as for hybrid means your own, but you still have on-premise hybrid with the cloud platform. Yeah. But that's about it. I think that would be the most sensible thing to do. And then indeed you are stuck to the cloud platform, what it has to offer. But nowadays these platforms have so much to offer that it's all a matter of are you willing to pay for more features, then you can get it. And it's all pretty well integrated. So it's usually provides a great a great experience if you use Azure or Amazon or something. These are the major ones, of course. And if you can find something a bit better on Amazon, yeah, next year Microsoft has copied it, or they offer the opportunity to use each other's services.
But that you already said it's about maturity. The last years I also measured the maturity where I come related to their ambitions. And then the problem is, like Surf, they give all the Microsoft license with discount, because that's how they did it in education. So I come in companies where they use Skype, Teams, Jammer, SMS, of course, we have that too, WhatsApp. It's a mess because everything is available and everything is used. So it starts by upgrading their level of maturity. And especially these kind of organizations, and also in the social housing sector, they have a level 1, because they are like, they call the steam engine ship vessels. Those were in the days number 5, but through the years, they slowed down their maturity, and then IT comes and IT has to go to level 3 or 4, and you cannot move because they are still on level 1. That's a well-known thing. So digital skills, is there a problem? But it expresses themselves is that they use everything and they like everything. And then the main thing I'm doing now is getting back to reality. What can we really not only implement, but we can use it, because also things they cannot use it. Bring down the ambitions, and then in relation to the cloud solution providers, find the best of breed to get them to level 2 and maybe us to level 3. So it starts by cleaning up a lot of cloud solutions.
Candy store, eh? So there's a lot of nice suites available, and you give your
also the maturity of the management of IT, and also the overall management, but especially management of IT. They see IT in most of those companies. They call them the head of IT and not the director. I'm now a director. That was changed before I came, because otherwise you was a head. So in fact you were not on all the tables, and you were just providing services just like a facility. We need something, call them and they run. If you want to use cloud solutions as what Serve also delivers, you need to be also organized with IT on a highest level, on all the tables and the board or whatever. And there you can influence then the ambitions to the maturity level you have. And if you can measure that and can manage it, then you can really go to clouds and get everything out that you really need. Because it's a candy store, and if everybody can choose whatever they want and not being stopped by anything, only money, because then that's in the end the wall they hit, you have big problems and it's not successful. And that is very, it's a pity, because it are really good solutions, and it's secured in a way that we can never do ourselves. So there's no discussion about that. But it ends up that it doesn't work because they have too many things and it's too complicated.
Marco, this is ending up in the candy store. Is that what you see in many organizations, or do they get ever out of this candy store?
Yeah, this is. I like the discussion, and a lot of things coming by are very recognizable for me. A lot of companies don't have one cloud vendor, so they have 3, 4, 5, whatever they want to pick. This like a candy store, they pick everywhere what they want to have. The other thing I hear is also interesting, and I'm wondering how the people are looking to the cost, the real cost. So are they saving money, bringing out their infrastructure and IT to the cloud? So their opinion as well. And well, the other thing I would like to address also, that's vulnerability. So what are they experiencing? A lot of, well, is there vulnerability? So we take over, Sander. So, well, the first thing, the real cost. What are the experiences from your side? Is it cheaper?
I think it's definitely cheaper if provided that you are really disciplined. It requires proper ownership of. So if you have a workload running on the cloud, then there must be an owner that has the access to all the information about workload, how it's performing, and how the cost is developing, and the ability to immediately change that, so on day basis, right? So it requires a proper DevOps teams basically managing the workload. On top of that, you have to have a proper enterprise landing zone that contains all the restrictions programmed in policies, automated on the cloud, so that you cannot go wrong. So it provides first of all the restrictions with respect to security, so you cannot do anything wrong. It also provides the structure of the subscriptions basically that you are owning on the cloud, and how how it is related to how you want to see the reporting across your organization. So you have to be really, really mature in managing workloads running on the cloud. And if your organization is capable of doing that, then it can be a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's also one of the things when you go to cloud solutions. They say you have to be a kind of regie. I lost the word, but you have to control your vendor. And they have an old-fashioned IT department in which the average age is 50 plus. In these companies, nothing wrong with them, but then you say they really are used to work on it themselves because it's in the closet. Then they go to the cloud, and you expect that an engineer suddenly can manage contracts and the kind of things, or in distance teams that are working on the cloud solution. That's maturity thing, but also they still keep those teams on site. So in the end, it costs extra money. If you can manage to then also on site in your organization build up a new IT department, and I call that digital services because it's more only than IT. You also have data, you have information management. Then you can really provide the services with a very good price. But mostly you see that they still have those 20, 25 people that cannot manage this. They get another group of young people to manage them these new cloud solutions, and it takes some 5 years to break down the cost, because 50%, because it's not everybody, age is not a problem, but the problem is, can you develop those skills in this new environment with this new mind setting? And if you put it all together, and if you can manage that, yeah, then cloud solutions are for environments with 1,000 people might be interesting. But if you cannot manage, it costs you still a lot of money.
Well, one comment from the Juha's side. So I think if somebody is asking that are the clouds cheaper or not than the current way of doing things, it depends. For example, if you're a startup company, that's really good way to start using cloud, because you are not needing any kind of for yourself. You are just buying as a service in a way. If you are not needing that anymore, you shut it down. So the subscription and related services, that might be a good idea in the starting point.
And you don't have all the resources to do all that work. So that is the solution for that one. Yeah.
But as you said, it's same thing as in the candy store. If you are having more features, even though that the unit cost per feature is maybe less than in your own data center, you are just using those quite a lot. So the total sum might be, well, even bigger. And I have seen something that people has been saying to me that, okay, this is so much easier and it's cheaper. But you have to make the business you have to have the processes for that. For example, if you don't need any kind of test machines in the night, you should be shutting down those. But are everybody doing that? That's a total different. And one earlier question was about the scalability. Of course, in the cloud, you are having much bigger scalability. Those hyperscalers, they are having really much capacity to be used. But of course, if you're having any kind of hybrid cloud or that kind of stuff, you can use the containers, you can have the Kubernetes and the OpenShift and whatever. You can use that in a way that you are able to start new containers if you are having a new workload. So in that sense, that's partially doable also in the private cloud or in the hybrid cloud, but of course not in the total scale as the hyperscalers are doing that. And one last thing I will comment is so that as Marco was mentioning, the cloud packs in a way, quite many of those, they are based on the open source, they are packaged right well. You are able to have that kind of stuff doing things in the same way that you are doing in the public clouds. And then you're having the data gravity. So the data is near to you. You are not needing to push that to cloud. And in principle, I think that it's easy to put stuff into the cloud. So in ingress, but if you are taking that out to outgress, that's costing money. And maybe in some cases quite a lot if you have a terabytes or whatever petabytes data.
Yeah, there's one category of cost advantage to the cloud, and that is was not mentioned. I think it's if you think about building a proper data platform as an example, it's to do that really well is extremely costly to do it on your own, even if you would do it by using buying packages and trying to connect that together. It will never have the quality that you can find on the cloud. So if you want to do a lot with data in terms of analysis, there is hardly any cheaper and better way than to use the data platforms as provided by an Amazon or an Azure.
I agree with that because we are on the point, because the old-fashioned organizations are still struggling with it because of all the investments they did in the past. Also that, and it's now the startups, the scale-ups. Those are the ones who are pulling it, and they want to follow them, but that is where they get stuck. What is the solution? I don't know. Maybe it takes some years that the new generation can come on board and pull them or push them to these new solutions, and also can help them if it's about cost to lower the cost.
So what I learned from
to me, it's not just an issue of generation. I believe if you really go to the cloud, and that's also what I experienced in certain companies, the IT department needs to change and get more procure aware. If you allocate lots of terabytes, the cloud provider doesn't care if you use them or not. It's paying on demand. So if the IT guys are not really cautious to scale back after migration or whatever, and that's what I experienced, the cost increased 10-20% unnecessary. The other part, in my view, is that the finance department is in the legacy world controlling investments and depreciation on hardware. But they need to really change their control procedures in order to get a grip on the on-demand resource allocations the cloud provider serves you, and obviously you have to pay for.
Yeah, it's all true, but I think that the only way to get real good control is if the control responsibility is put low in the organization, in the individual teams that manage the workloads that are running on the cloud. And you can also put an additional control on top of that by programming, setting guardrails beyond which they cannot go as the teams. Yeah. And you can set them on company level or on department level if you want, depending on the subscription structure that you define on the cloud. And that's why a proper enterprise landing zone that includes all these policies that you program on the cloud so that nobody can cross it. So it's not paper, but it's actual not being able, not lacking the ability as a team to go beyond a certain cost level, for instance. That is really important, and so that helps you to be disciplined in the usage of the cloud.
I agree with you. It should be low in the organization, but I experience if there is no awareness with the IT engineers in the old world, it was a certain process in place to get an investment for hardware extension. But now an engineer can double the cloud environment with just one pushing the button, and you increase your manual your monthly cost. You double, and before you get aware of this, you're 3 months later.
Well, here's the point. This is exactly why the local or the individual team that owns that workload has to have that responsibility, and it's no longer somewhere central, because then it takes 3 months before you know it. and they have to get the by tagging the workloads and by getting and looking at the reports on a daily basis. They can see it on a daily basis, or even get alerting that they can set. So you can see on a daily basis whether your costs are spiraling out of control. And since they are responsible themselves, they can remedy it on the same hour that they see it. So that is the reason why doing this in the cloud on a mature level means that you have to have that local responsibility in each team. It also means that such a team has to be mature in how this works. Yeah, so I agree with you, and it doesn't depend on age. It depends on whether the people are trained well enough to be mature. And one way to achieve that in an organization is if you create a cloud competence center that is specifically aimed at training these teams to how to manage their workload.
Okay. Thank you, Wouter. With the risk of running out of time, and we have a couple of minutes. My conclusion for the last couple of minutes was that we can draw a triangle. Maybe I don't know if you can see this. And the triangle says discipline, cost, and candy in terms of cloud, and you can choose any two.
Yeah.
Is that the conclusion for the past minutes? I've heard the word candy store a lot. There's a lot of possibilities, but you need a little bit of discipline and maturity to address the cost and to keep the cost a little bit in control. And I believe, hearing you guys keep on talking, we can talk on for hours, and that would be probably even better with a beer or a glass of wine here, Juha. Sorry to have you on such a distance. Remy, Wouter, Hans, thank you for your contributions just now, and for some other ideas. Is there any question, guys? Marco, Sander, I should have asked you, and I haven't.
Well, not specific, and I'd like the discussion, the open discussion, in the way we do this. Well, there were some points I would like to address, but there's no more time left. But sustainability, vulnerability, you can also do separate discussions on it. Yeah, well, I want to thank everybody for the openness and well, the active participation.
Yeah,
Agree.
thank you.
No, agree. And new risks coming up. So with the energy cost increase, what to do with on-prem data centers versus cloud internet matters. So yeah, lots of points to pick up next time.
Yeah. What I've learned is like it's not that it's the world is becoming easier. It's the IT environment becomes more complex. Cost and going into the cloud is not directly a lower cost, and it's probably a lousy reason to go into the cloud. It's thinking about what you really want and improve in terms of processes and stuff like that. The governance of all these kind of things is an issue in terms of the regulatory environment, is also increasingly more difficult. IBM sets itself apart at least putting on paper that your data is yours. That's one thing I learned. Thank you very much, guys, here in the studio. Juha, thank you very much in close to Helsinki. Hope to see you anytime soon. Before you go in real retirement, because 36 years. Do we have any chance to have you here in the studio once? Still?
I think the official limit is for that is 65, and I'm just about 60. So it will seem to be how much longer I will still work for that. But
36 years in one company, yeah.
For that, the discussion was on the right level, because those big things are the big things, and the technological things, they are the low things. You can always have a great technology from the IBM or from elsewhere, but the upper level, the management, the principles, cloud strategies, and as in the last, the subscription management for the cloud, that's the key area in that sense.
Well, on that note, I wish everybody a little bit of discipline in the candy store then, and thank you very much, and see you next time.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.